must die young.
So, apologies for starting a little bit later than advertised. We're going up at 9:45. We are working on different timelines and other people's schedules. These things happen. Going to bring immediately in my co-host and co-founder of The Outcasts. We've not been on together at the same time on the channel for quite a while, so it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Dickon Tolson from his hideaway in North London, Stamford Hill. How are you doing this evening?
Absolutely fantastic, Lance. Can't wait.
And we're both pretty excited, got to be said, because our guest tonight is someone whose career I followed since I became a fan of David Niven. David Niven was the first actor I was ever really into as a kid. Richard Burton was the second, and I watched absolutely everything they did.
So did you watch Paper Tiger with David?
I did watch Paper Tiger. And that was a favorite of a film of mine when I was a kid. They actually put it on when David Niven passed away. And that was the first time I proper remember crying. But one of the things that cheered me up was this very, very attractive lady that was in that film. And I thought, who's this? I need to follow the career of this person.
How old were you at the time, Lance?
Pretty young. I was very young, actually, probably about 7. But that was the wonderful Irene Sue, and she has been in the industry in Hollywood, television, film, and theatre for 6 decades. I want to say 5 at least. I think 6. She may correct me in a second. She has worked with everyone from John Wayne to Elvis Presley, Jeff Bridges, and others. David Niven, as we just mentioned. The list goes on. She's done every major television show in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Had a fantastic career, and she's given up some of her very valuable time to be with us here this evening. So all the way from Los Angeles, Irene Sue, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I hope that was a suitable introduction. And if there was any inaccuracies, please tell me now.
Mm-hmm.
Was that is it 6 decades you've been in the industry? Is that correct?
I don't know. I'm not counting right. I started like when I was 15,
Yeah.
So it's been a long time. Mm-hmm.
You got into the industry pretty young.
How you look, Irene? I guess that's only been 20 years then.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. We're full of compliments here this evening. You're going to get loads more of those.
Okay.
As they come on. Now, one of the things that I read that was really interesting is that at one point you nearly went to the Royal Ballet School in London in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the funny thing is, if you had gone there, you would have met my mum because she was there at that time.
Oh my! Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's because she trained to be a ballerina and then became a ballet teacher.
And
I believe it was your father that put his foot down and kind of said, "No, you're not going to do that."
That's right.
But then the acting opportunity, you relocated to New York, and then some acting opportunities came up there. Do you want to maybe sort of just talk to us about the early things? I think you had a Broadway audition at 15, if I remember rightly, and then there was a few little in movies.
I was living in New York, of course, because we migrated to New York, and I went to Mamaroneck Junior High School. I was like 11, and my sister was in elementary school. So and then luckily for me, we moved down to Manhattan, for my mom to look for a job. She is a very fine artist. And so I went to another school. So I was trying to somehow take the subway and go to Carnegie Hall to take ballet, because I had a very good ballet teacher in Hong Kong. There were two very famous ones. One is more the Russian style, and the other was the American style. And so I was taking ballet for maybe a couple of years, and I was entered into this contest that goes to also the Commonwealth. They had it once every 4 years, I was told. And so we had this big interview. I don't know if you want to hear about it, but it's I did what I was told to do, the little bit of work at the bar, the ballet,
Sure.
pliés and port the bras and stuff like that. And then we had a little solo number to do. I was just so terrified. I had no idea what I did. I was so glad that it was over. I curtsied, ran out, and within weeks, maybe a month or a couple months, we heard back from them, and they had called me. And then my father was not living in Hong Kong at the time, was living in Taiwan. And he flew in, went to one of the high-rise buildings and met with I think at the time it was called Sadler's World. Sadler's World.
Yeah, that still exists. That's still a thing in London, and that all the major ballet companies dance there.
Oh, okay, Sadler's Wells. And so he had a meeting with them, and they told him exactly what was to happen, which I am elaborating on it because it was my first encounter with so-called a possibility to be in the performing arts business. Sure. So they told my father exactly that she's going to have to eat what we tell her to do, what we tell her to eat, sleep when we tell her to sleep, and she has to have regular school because I was 11 years old. And and not only that, but you'd have to work for the Royal Ballet or Sadler's Wells because of all the training that we have given you. But there's no guarantee that you're going to be a prima ballerina or you're going to be in the corps de ballet. So you have to work for us for something like 7 years in order to pay back the training that they have given me. So upon hearing that, my father was just saying, this doesn't really add up. How would I know what she's gonna? Oh, not only that, you have to measure up to our standards. Whatever the height is, the weight is, and everything. It's very, very strict. So it's a life of like going into a convent. So it really is. I don't know how it is today, but very restrictive. So my father looks at me, and I was a scrawny little 11-year-old, and how was he ever gonna know that I would look like when I'm 16 or 17 or 18? It was a tough choice, and he immediately said, no, this is not going to be possible for my daughter. But actually, part of the truth was also, I learned later, that we were applying to come to the United States. Right. And that took a long time under the Refugee Relief Act. We were political refugees because our country had turned communism, So, that's what happened. And so never had another chance again. So by the time I got to New York, every chance I got, I always went to study ballet, when I was in middle school or junior high school. I just took up ballet because that was my passion. It was something that I loved to do. But I had also taken up jazz. I think it's called jazz because it was the kind of dance that it did in West Side Story.
Yeah, sure.
It's jazz. So that's quite different. Ballet was all, what's going on.
Jazz hands.
Jazz hands. Jazz
So
hands.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's upper body, you know,
Yeah.
like it's like upper body is just very rigid, you know. I mean, you do your whatever, you know, arabesque or whatever, but it's always the feet that's really working, you know, on those point shoes. It's torture. And but jazz is down low, very low. You're always in a bad knee. You hardly ever even straighten your leg out, and then, you know, you dance across the floor, and you know, very very low, and you do knee slides, and you know, spin on your knees and everything, you know, just like you saw West Side Story. You know, everything's very low. So that was a difference. And uh well, so that's what happened in New York, and I really, you know, never thought about. I mean, I think about it constantly how I was going to be if I was, you know, a ballerina in London and probably touring the world or whatever it was. But somehow I I just I was going to school, and but I would always hear about auditions they have, you know, Broadway auditions, and my
The
very
world of Susie Wong, wasn't it? Was the first open one you
uh,
went to that you
yeah,
got?
it was a road company, and they were looking for some replacements. Some people didn't want to go to the replacement, you know. So I mean, didn't want to go to the road company. You know, you have to understand that I was like 15 years old, you know. So
Sure.
so my mother had to sign, you know, my contract, and she didn't read all that much English. I mean, she did, but not a contract, you know. So so she just signed it to at the David Merrick's office, and off I went. It was probably like 6 months or whatever, and that was kind of a very interesting experience. Uh, just very interesting experience. You know, as you know, you're in the theater. The road companies
Yeah.
are a kind of a thing of its own because we're stopping in a different town every night, or we will play there 3 days, 5 days, some bigger towns and whatever, you know. And I didn't even know that my father was in the United States. And one town he showed up, and
Oh,
I was horrified. I mean, I was like, I didn't even know that you were here. So he says, "What is this you're doing? I hear that you dropped out of high school and you what is it touring with, especially the world of Susie Wong? You know, I mean, it was like not really like a Sound of Music or whatever, you know."
No. Sure.
Uh, so so I said, you know, I like it. It's fun, you know, whatever. So that was a little glitch, but I had a roommate who was an incredible cook, and she made him this like 7 course dinner, and kind of really kind of really, you know, charmed him, and he sort of always talked about that dinner and didn't think
oh,
about, you know. I said, well, you know, this is only for 6 months or 6.5 months, whatever it was. So then I came back to New York, and I just had a taste of what it is to be a like a performer, you know. But even before that, I have to tell you, I was in high school, and my teacher, my dance teacher, she had she was of the school of Martha Graham, you know, Florence Humphrey, Martha Graham, that
Yeah.
modern kind of technique. And she was just a lovely lady. She just, you know, had wore this long black skirt and a black leotard, you know, and with her hair just, you know, in a low bun and everything. And for some reason, she kind of knew that I was a dancer or I could dance. She had asked me to be the lead, understudy for the lead in a play called Finian's Rainbow. And
Yep.
uh, nobody's ever heard of it now. But so I said, well, I don't really speak that much English, you know. She said, no, 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 no. The lead is a deaf mute, and she communicates with her feet, with dance. Uh, you know, I said, oh, okay. And she had me, you know, sign me out of classes, and I watched rehearsals every day. And I thought, wow, this is kind of cool, you know, like, you know, very nice. And So I would watch the rehearsal. I would try to remember the routine. You know, I was moving my feet, you know, on the cold cement in the auditorium, and that was actually my first start, even before Susie Wong or whatever it was.
It was not long after these things you got a bit part in something opposite James Stewart. Is that right?
Yes, that was when I auditioned for Hermes Penn for a dancing role in the Flower Drum Song, the not the Broadway version, but the film version of Flower Drum Song. And at that time, it was I think it was a Universal film, and so I got the part. I mean, you know, I was just one of the chorus dancers. And the strange thing is that, in fact, you know, just a few years ago when I wrote the book, I said, you know, how did I get from New York to LA, you know, only 16 years old, and I, you know, I wouldn't know what to do. And Nancy Kwan had told me that she asked that I be her roommate. And I go, really? You did? I mean, did you know you have to room with a 16-year-old, you know? So she apparently, we had met very briefly because she was in Susie Wong about a month or two before she came to London. And I believe it was filmed in London or Hong Kong or something. So we met very briefly, and she thought she would have company, I guess. I don't know. So somehow she said that she was the one that told her manager, Ray Stark, that she wanted me to be her roommate. So I lucked out. I, you know, went to Hollywood and I, you know, get in the limo every morning. They took us to the studio, and then they, yeah, then they,
Nancy Kwan.
yeah, you know, she's actually half American. She's not Chinese. She's
and
half
she's
American.
and she's also still alive as well. She's still
Oh
going.
yeah, she's like 83 years old. She looks fantastic. And because we just did a show together, we had a whole month of Asian films organized by my friend Arthur Dong at the Academy Museum. We had this really huge place built. I think it was completed about 2.5 years ago. So then back to being Nancy Kwan's roommate in the Flower Drum Song, and so we rehearsed every day, and you know, whatever, and then we got taken back to her apartment in a limo, of course. So I thought that's the way it's going to be in Hollywood. You know, I mean, that's that's pretty good. You know, of course I had to, because I didn't drive, and of course I didn't have a car. You know, um, so that's the end of that. And did I have a good time? Yeah, I had a good time. I just remember something, and maybe that's what motivated me to be an actor. I didn't really like, okay, I'm really going to study, go to all the, you know, conservatory and everything to be an actor. I just heard that they'll say, okay, lunch, actors 1 hour and dancers half an hour. And I thought, you know, this is not good. Yeah, this is not good. We're being treated as second-class citizens or something. So I, you know, that kind of like set a little thing in my mind anyway. But it was during one of the dance numbers. The director was Henry Coster. He was a very big director at the time. If you look him up, he, you know, he had done many movies. And so it was a little scene, and he picked 3 dancers, the you, and you, and I was right in the middle. And he said, you know, just step down 2 steps. 1, 2, put your hands on your face and start the song. Like chop suey, you know. And so whatever you do, he said, sweetie, okay, don't look into the camera. Because look to the right, look to the left, don't look into the camera. Well, I've never been in a film before, so I stepped down, went chop right in the camera. And I know, just every time, right in the camera. That took like 4 or 5 takes. I was just so embarrassed. I can't. That I'm thinking back is because I've never been in a film before. I have been photographed by photographers, which of course looked in the camera, and the
Sure.
photographer would say, okay, tilt your head this way a little bit, or look up, or look down, whatever it is. So that's, I think, what happened. And I spent days trying to avoid him, which was not that bad because it was a very big, it's a big show and lots of extras, lots of dancers, lots of actors. And so I thought, okay, I can just disappear. That would be the best thing for me to do.
Before we move on, I think Dickon had a question.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, how did you feel like in a way you'd sort of escaped a bullet by moving into musical theatre, as it were, or film musicals from ballet? Because I know it's so strict and there's a lot of body shaming in ballet, and I know there must be some in film and musical theatre as well. But how was the contrast for you when you first started that?
When I first started acting, you mean?
Yeah, well, when you moved into your flower drum song, when you were facing the Sadler's Wells and the life in ballet, and being measured and being totally controlled in terms of diet and image, and people talk about body shaming now, and I just think it's probably better than it used to be, but there's still a lot. And it must be slightly different in ballet than it is to doing, musicals. But there must.
Yeah, for sure, because ballet, it's a live theater, because now we see very little ballet in the United States. I mean, I think there's the San Francisco Ballet still going on. The very last time I went to see maybe the Bolshoi or something, and it was really less than 1/3 full, the theater. People are not really, I don't know. You know how everything goes in and out, and whatever the Vogue is, and stuff like that. And I just, I've lost touch with that part of it because I got my big break from Henry Costa. He asked me if I wanted to be in his next movie with Jimmy. How would I know who Jimmy was? Jimmy. I went around the set and asking, who's Jimmy? And then he said, lunchtime tomorrow or the next day, come into my office and I'm going to give you the script. And it's called Take Her, She's Mine.
Right.
And it was with Jimmy Stewart and Sandra Dee. And I had never really read a script. I didn't even know where I should, the page number and the scene number, and it was very confusing to me. So, and I really couldn't find the part where he was talking about. He said, "Don't worry about it. We are going to write it in later." And he just speaks something to me in French. So I did speak some French because of the ballet. I learned a lot of French. So I decided to take French in high school and junior high school and stuff like that. So I blabbered off in French, and so he said, very good. Okay, but don't worry about it. We'll have the dialogue coach help you or whatever. And I said, "Oh, thank you, Mr. Costa." And that was it. So I didn't know that meant that I had the part or what, So as it turned out that I had the part, and then they said, well, you better find yourself an agent or something. You need to have an agent. I said, okay, well, I don't know where to look. And there was like 2 agents in town that handle primarily Asian actors. So I looked at the names and everything. So I chose one, and I went to meet with him, and And he had a small office right next to a bigger office, somebody's bigger office right on Sunset Strip. And
so you'd relocated to Los Angeles at this point?
did I relocate to Los Angeles? Somewhat, I guess. Somewhat. I had. Well, I was still rooming with Nancy Kwan after the movie was done. Somehow,
Right.
we had gotten into a house up on the hills, way up on the hills somewhere, uh, with an incredible view. And sometimes I drive up the hill trying to look for the house, thinking, I'm sure that it's long gone. Some humongous mansion is there now.
Right.
And I must have learned to drive by then, because Los Angeles is a city that needs driving. You can't go anywhere. We don't even have a
I know.
Yeah,
I lived there for 3 months and I don't drive, and I had to get everywhere by bus or taxi, and it was a nightmare.
Oh my God! Yes, bus, and we have no subway, and Uber, and it's not good. You have to kind of know that where is the places you're going to frequent. So where I live now, to me, is like kind of in the center. I'm halfway between downtown and Santa Monica, where the beach is. So and I try to go to west of me, west of the 405, to do everything that I need to do there. And then some days I go to the other side if I need to do XYZ. So, LA County is humongous, as you know.
Yeah.
And, but, basically I'm still a New Yorker at heart, and I go back to New York every year,
So how was the experience of working with Jimmy Stewart? I mean, that must have been your first, I guess, really big star that you worked alongside. How was he?
It was fantastic. It was really fantastic. And that little piece of film, I really think it was probably one of the best little piece of film that I have, which I have a little, whatever they call a demo reel, and it's on there if you ever want to see it.
That's on your YouTube channel. So just to let everybody know, Irene has got a YouTube channel, and there's loads of clips of her work on there. That's right.
I don't know that, but
yeah, you've got a YouTube channel, with loads of clips. Well, somebody's got a YouTube channel with your name, and it's got loads of your clips.
Yeah, I have a very dear friend. Well, he's a fan, and he is in Melbourne, Australia, and he's a huge Elvis fan, and he's sort of like my admin. If I need to, have something put on there, or he'll suggest that what should I put on next, and I'll say, okay, do maybe this. He said, what about this? And so we work together very well, and we're on WeChat. We speak like 3 or 4 times a week, and other than that, I'm not, that my daughter is very, very computer savvy. I mean, she is going to take, of course, computer sciences in college, and
gotta be these days.
Yeah.
Did you find that he, you would have been very young when you worked with Mr. Stewart? Did you find he was quite a giving actor?
Oh yeah, he is just he's just incredible. He's really I mean, he is such a huge star if you looked at, his credits and everything. And but he was so kind, and so helpful, because he knows that there's a part of it, it is the first movie that I ever spoke, and I spoke French, and so he was very helpful, because I was just doing whatever the director tells me to do. Okay. So it required quite a few takes, because I had these 4-inch slide-on heels, and I'm supposed to run and jump on his back. And Jimmy is quite a tall guy, and very skinny. And this chubby, 16-year-old is going to jump on his back, so many times. And he would make good suggestions because my shoes will fall off. And, he would say that, we should put some tape on the shoe. Maybe your foot will stay in there better. And then I could scoop down a bit. I could scoop down. I could, just, let's count it out, 1, 5, 6, whatever it is. Then, he was scooped down. And then it came out very good. But, I bet his back must be really sore after all of that.
I think I found a picture of that actually. Yeah, I think this is it. Let me just this one here on the right here.
Yes.
That's you
for sure.
You had to jump on his back, and
yeah.
Those are the aforementioned stiletto heels that we can see.
That's right. And I was already falling off, and I would be trying over and over and over again. It wasn't that easy of a scene, but ever since I did that, Henry Costa liked me so well that he wanted to put me in his next picture and the next picture and next picture. And I didn't do it. I couldn't do it because there's a conflict, we're doing something else. And all of a sudden with my new agent, he would be, sending me out and stuff. And, I would, whether it's TV or film or whatever it was, I just wanted to work as much as possible.
Yeah, well, you didn't have many breaks in your career. It seems like you were always working on something. Let's talk about some of the TV shows that you did in the 60s. I mean, you were in everything from, you worked with Perry Mason, Phil Silvers, you did My Favorite Martian, you did The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Wild Wild West, which I remember was a positive experience for you. Wonder Woman, not so much. I mean, tell us about a couple of those. What was it like? Phil Silvers was one of your first, I think, and that was quite an iconic show. How did you find that? Was that a very quick turnaround, everybody rushing to complete the next shot? How was that?
I have to be truthful. I don't know who Phil Silvers is. I don't remember doing that show at all.
The Phil Silvers show is the
like Sergeant Bilko. There was this
was it a comedy?
Yeah, it was a comedy, and it was set on an army camp. And actually, there was a series called Top Cat that was based upon that later. There was a cartoon, but Phil Silvers was this sort of balding guy with big glasses, and he was always trying to pull a grift. He was always trying to, con his superiors into getting more stock or supply or make money for his platoon, his unit.
I don't remember. I don't remember at all. We have to move to the next one.
The Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
Man from U.N.C.L.E. Do you remember working on that?
Man from U.N.C.L.E., I think, was the one that with Robert Vaughn and David McCallum. Yes. Yeah. I do remember that. And I do remember that I mean, even though, we work on a scene, we don't really hang out,
No.
We're not in the scene. And I know that David McCallum was very precise. We were either playing chess or mahjong or something like that. And he wanted to know when I was going to pick up this tile and put it down when he delivers his dialogue. It was got to be timed just so. And Robert Vaughn didn't say much. He's always buried himself in some paperback, whenever he's not on the set, he just in the dressing room buried, but his girlfriend also calls him on the hour, like every hour,
okay.
Right. Checking up on him. So so that was it. And but you have to remember that I was just very, very young all through this whole time that I was working a lot. And Wild Wild West I do remember very well because it was a great part, and I did like Robert Conrad a lot. He is, unfortunately, he did most of his stunts, and I saw him just a few years ago because we do that Hollywood show, which is an autograph show.
Oh, yeah.
And he can hardly walk. I believe he was in a wheelchair. Yeah.
So his body took a beating from doing all his own stunts.
Yeah, he did all his own stunts, and over the years, just took a real beating. And I have pictures of him and I enjoyed the show. It was a very good part. It was wonderful, and yeah. So Wild Wild West, I remember. I also remember a show, Perry Mason. I do remember. It seems like I did quite a few Perry Masons. It was like Ironsides and Perry Mason.
Yeah.
I was contracted to do 3 episodes with Perry Mason. So then what happened was
that's Wild Wild West on the right there.
Wild West.
Yeah.
That's right. And Perry Mason was, he's an incredible actor, the Raymond Burr, because there was a new Perry Mason and the guy just didn't cut it, and it was just cut very short. That didn't go. But Raymond Burr was he was Perry Mason. He
had a huge presence, didn't he?
Huge presence. But I have to tell you a secret. It's not a secret anymore.
Please do.
Well, he doesn't really memorize his lines, but it's very hard if you're in a series. Every day you have all these new pages and pages and pages. Must be really absorbing. So what he does is that he has them pasted. Like he's doing a close-up, and I have to give him the lines. So I'm giving him the lines, and he's reading off of cue cards.
Sure.
All over the place. I can't move my chin down. I can't move my head this way. I can't move my head that way. I can't move my head. It's all around me. So
surrounded by cue cards.
Yeah, all cue cards all around me. And he has a way of doing it that the audience would never know that he was reading the cue cards. I don't know. Maybe Scott a way of doing it. I'm sure that he's perfected the way of doing it. It's either from the right to the left and left, whatever it was. But it was so odd that I was like, okay. All right, now Irene, don't. No, you're going too much. You're blocking it. Okay, don't. Okay, is this okay? Okay, fine. Okay, now don't dip your head down either. Don't look. Yeah. Okay. So I found that quite, fascinating.
With a couple of actors that use cue cards, and some of them are very quick. But I heard about, and I know it's very different from the Perry Mason episode, but Marlon Brando was very much like, he would look at the cue card, he would absorb it, and then he would deliver his line. And then he would look at the cue card, he would absorb it, and then he would deliver the line. And so it gave it this magnificent sort of aura. It looked like all his performances were really deep. and you look at Apocalypse Now and you think it's amazing. And, the reason he was lit like that, because he was overweight, and the reason that he was so absorbing is because he was reading off of cue cards. So it can work as a process,
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Think of the other actor who is hemmed in from all sides.
Did you find in the 60s you were doing quite a lot of TV shows, quite a tight turnaround? Would it be common for pages to be rewritten at the last minute, or were they fairly rigid with the scripts that they had? What was your experience of that?
Well, TV is very rigid. If you want to change one word, I'm not even talking about one line, they will have to call the towel.
Yeah, that's what I heard back then. It was, these are the pages we're doing, no variation.
None. Can I say this and that? It's just more natural for me wait. We'd have to call the towel, whoever is up there in the towel.
Right.
Universal, of course, it's MCA Universal, it's Merchandising Corp of America, they had a lot of power, so that's how. Maybe it's the timing for TV, it's so crucial, and they can't vary from the.
No, and there's also story arcs and things to consider as well, I suppose, that a guest actor might not think about. Let's talk about some of your early film roles. I know Sword of Ali Baba was one of those, but there's a poster I've just got to share because I'm wondering if you'll remember this one, because this poster claims to introduce Irene Sue to the world, as often films claim to when actors are young and they're starting out. Women of the Prehistoric Planet, which
that I remember. I
had the pleasure of watching your scenes in this today.
Oh my God!
And what fun that was! And you are actually on the poster there as introducing. So was that the first time you were in a feature film, or was Alibaba before that? In a speaking role, in a named part. I mean, I don't just mean
I had a big part in that. Yeah. And this film was shot in 11 days.
Really?
Yes. And the director writer, I forgot his name now. Oh my God, I'm so ashamed. Really nice guy. Is it
Arthur Pierce? Arthur Pierce,
right? And for some reason, I don't know how I met him or how went to the interview, and he casted me, and just somehow I didn't know it was so low budget. It was somehow financed by this family that owns a golf club, or something like that. They own a golf course and the clubhouse, something like that. And so work is work. You know what I mean? Work is work. I mean,
you've got to eat. You've got to eat.
Yeah, I just try to keep as busy as I can, and I would. I got the part, and I didn't know that it was 11 days. So we were just shooting and shooting and shooting. And the sets were so cheap. They were made out of like papier-mâché, you know what I'm saying? So don't lean on it too much. So, just, okay, you can like stand like this, but don't lean on it. Okay. 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 Got it. And
the set shakes.
The guy that played my I guess my love interest, he was he's a terrific guy. I know him very, very well. I worked with him later also. Robert Ito, he's from the Canadian ballet. He's a ballet dancer,
right?
And his wife is a concert pianist, and I've lost touch with him, and who knows? Maybe they have passed, But when I wrote my book, I really didn't know that I had so many titles. I had to look up IMDb and figure out, what I did, and when I did that, I remember very, very well, like 7 women I remember.
Sure.
And
Rob, you said Robert Ito was your love interest in that. Is that right?
Yes, right.
I'm pleased to tell you that he is still alive.
I am. Yes, I must call him, because his wife always send a Christmas card that's like, I think maybe she had painted it. It's very nice, very, very nice.
I remember him because he was in a quite an obscure but a bit of a cult film that's a favorite of mine called Adventures of the Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, which was a sci-fi kind of a sci-fi B movie that came out in 1984, and he was also in Rollerball with James Caan.
Oh wow, that was a great film.
Yeah.
No, he was in a series. He was in a series. What was it? Some kind of series. He played
Quincy. He was in Quincy. Yeah.
Quincy. That's right. I remember him from Quincy, and he's just such a nice person.
What was going on with your family at this time? What were they thinking about? Were they starting to see that it was something serious now, or were they still a little bit with their reservations on what you were doing and where?
You know, my dad was just never like me being in the entertainment business, but I think finally, you know, when I had some success, he took me to a fortune teller, you know, in New York, and you know, when he realized that I was serious and I was going to move out to LA to make it or not make it, well, I had a girlfriend there that she agreed to rent me her couch for, you know, $32 a month. So he said, well, I'll just cut her off. Sooner or later, she'll come home.
Right.
And, you know, so whenever I needed some money, I would, you know, reach out to my mom, and she would say, don't worry about it. I'll send you $200.
And not tell your dad.
Yeah. Well, I never talk to my dad anyway. My dad talks to my mom, and my mom talks to me.
Right.
And the reason I really wrote this book is for my dad, because I felt that he never approved of me my whole life, you know, because, you know, like most Chinese families, they want you to be an engineer or at least a CPA or something, you know. What is this? I mean, what is this theater about? You know, theater meaning if it was Chinese opera, then that's something else. But this film business, you know, it's a stage business, and they didn't understand it. Well, because I didn't come from a theater family, you know.
Sure. Mm-hmm. But it must have got to the stage at some point where you were in a movie in their hometown. I mean, you know, you've got Paper Tiger, Green Berets coming up, Paradise Hawaiian Style. There must have been a time where your dad could have gone past the cinema and gone, that's my daughter. I mean, that must have happened. Was there a transition at that point? I mean, did he ever turn around?
I think that they did come to see the Green Berets, and it was they had a premiere in New York. But at the time that the movie came out, it was a very unpopular movie, of course, because
involved in the Vietnam War.
Yeah, was involved in this ridiculous war, and so we couldn't even go to the theater. There was a bomb scare. So we were all shuttled into some screening room, 2 different screening rooms. And all my mother can say is that, well, you look like a very pretty flower vase, meaning that they just put you there and they put you here. And it's like you know.
And that felt like an insult to you. It didn't feel like a compliment in any way.
Yeah, I was hoping that she liked a little bit of it, you know. But my mom was a huge Elvis fan. That's
I mean, we're jumping topics a little bit because I want to talk about Elvis and the Green Berets as kind of 2 separate things.
Okay.
Maybe because you've started on the Green Berets, let's just wrap that up first, and then we'll go back to Elvis if we may, because I know that's going to be Dickens' area of specialty. With the film The Green Berets, I mean, were you conscious when you were making it that this was a film that was maybe going to end up on the wrong side of the political milieu? I mean, I know you were with John Wayne. That was a very big deal. He's an ardent Republican. He was a big supporter of the war, very vocally. He was a supporter of America's involvement. That film, of course, has been, you know, reviled since as kind of the last grasp of, I guess, American colonialism in Asia, if you like. What was your take on it at the time that you were filming it, as opposed to now? It's easy to look back and say, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done that one. But at the time, were you conscious of that? I know the war was going on, but it wasn't. We were still at the end of the 60s when that was being made, and I think it was being filmed as the Tet Offensive happened, if I remember, 68.
Yeah, it was 68, and like I said, I was just hugely busy working, working, and I was flown to Fort Benning, Georgia, and I was cast by his son, Michael Wayne, who is the head of his production company.
Right.
And they had a glitch, so I had to go back because the Vietnamese military had wanted their star. They had a very big singing star. She was a singer, and they wanted her to be the female lead in it. And so Wayne wouldn't go for it, but then Wayne needed the Vietnamese military. How is he going to shoot this picture without the Vietnamese military involvement? So they kind of negotiated, and it came down to the fact that she is going to be in a movie and just do that song. She does a song, and then
right.
I became the top model that was the bait that seduced the colonel, general or whatever. We're friends today. He's a wonderful guy. We've been friends all these years.
Sure. And you got to work with Jim Hutton on that film, who's the father of Timothy Hutton, the actor.
Timothy Hutton, yes.
How was Jim Hutton? Because he died very young of cancer, unfortunately.
Really, I'm not sure. The only person that I was a little bit here's the thing. Okay, we were on base, and we actually shot the whole thing on base.
Yeah, all in Fort Benning, wasn't it? The whole thing.
Yeah, So I have my own cottage, and sometimes I have nothing to do. I went and did the laundry and chatted with the army wives, and it was kind of a. I was so young, Wayne didn't like me. He called me that hippie chick or, something.
Oh, wow.
And because I went there, and of course we were limoed to whatever, makeup or something. And he said, "Oh, nice to meet you, monsieur. I would like to invite you for a drink, afterwards." And I said, I don't drink. I was like so stupid, it was like, so he kind of took it, the wrong way. And I did get a lot of, from my friends, because we were of that age that, of course, I actually knew people that AWOL'd, and they were so against the Vietnam War. I mean, somebody,
sure.
A lot of people were so against the war, and the war was ridiculous. And but I saw the movie again because they had some kind of anniversary for the movie. We all met in El Paso, Texas, and I realized that the Green Berets, a bunch of guys, really, they were soldiers. They were doing what they were told to do, and they believed in it. The commitment. I mean, you sign up to be a soldier, and that's what you do. I mean, now the Russians are attacking Ukraine. The Russians didn't want to go to the war. I mean, it's still somebody's son. It's still so they. I saw the movie again, but I learned a lot about the military from being on that movie set for like almost 4 months, because there were so many scenes that we were on all different locations, and we had to be bused from one location to another. And Wayne is technically the director, okay, for the movie. And but they sent in an old pro to kind of keep track of whatever, and his name was Mervyn Leroy. I don't know if you...
I have heard of that name.
Yeah, Mervyn Leroy. All I can remember was that he's wearing like velvet slippers in the
on an army base on a military set.
In a war zone, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, he basically came in and took drinks with the Duke and David Jensen, who didn't have much to do. He stayed drunk the whole entire movie, and there was no place to go eat dinner, so we went and had dinner. I went and had dinner at one of Jensen's or Wayne, that they had a chef because there's only 2 restaurants on the army base, and so
wasn't there an incident where you experienced a bit of racism when you went into a diner in town?
Yeah, that was an Italian restaurant. So I was with George Takei, who was also in the movie.
Right, Sulu from Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek, and so he said, "Well, Irene, don't get fancy. Just stay with the spaghetti and meatballs." I said, "Okay, fine." So we went and sat down in the booth, and so I said, "Okay, I'll order the spaghetti and meatballs." And all of a sudden we heard this voice, booming, loud voice, right behind me in the next booth, and he was saying, "You should be so lucky you're even let in here," And I thought, "Oh my God, something bad is going to happen." And I saw George gripping his knife and fork, and he was turning red and then green and then white. And I go, "Oh no. I need to somehow duck down. They're going to start a fight." It was really kind of a incident that I had never felt before, and because we're in Georgia, that's the South,
Yeah.
Georgia is definitely south of the Mason-Dixon, so
yeah.
So then all of a sudden, just life is timing. Everything is timing. I always heard this booming voice. "Hey guys, can I come and join you guys? Can sit with you?" It was Mike Henry, professional football player. He was in the movie. Yeah, he's a really nice guy, but he's also, of course, 250 pounds and 6
a little bit bigger than George Takei.
Yeah. Wow. Can I come and sit with you guys? Hey, yeah. So he came, and boy, that guy just disappeared. I don't know if he just shut up or went to another table or something like that, because he didn't realize that he wasn't going to come anywhere near Mike Henry, So there was just, here's the thing. On a set, especially a set like that, you learn a lot of things. When it's a long shoot, like that, it goes on from day and day to day. And then also it kind of when, because we were running over budget, so things that were supposed to be finished didn't. So they were shooting 24 hours a day. They will have second crew, the third crew, like a lot of because they didn't have CGI in those days,
No.
So they didn't even have enough Asian people to play the Viet Congs. So they had to get them out of the army, those guys that were fighting for the U.S., to be shipped out to be playing Viet Congs in the movie. I've lost touch. Actually, I'm still in touch with a lot of people that were in the military. They said that we kept your photo in the foxhole, and I came back to the United States and married a Chinese woman. I said, wow.
Hey, some compliment, huh?
Well, I'm in touch with them. Sometimes, they'll send me a Christmas card or my birthday card or something. And,
so there's a lot of women that owe their marriages to you.
That's right. So they're a nice group of people. And, of course, I'm in touch with the general, the guy that played the general.
Might have been this photo on the right here. I'm thinking in the purple dress there. But
the purple dress, I don't know. It was somehow, it's no, it's
It might be later.
there's a lot of photographers that, they're well-known photographers that, photographed me. I don't know where it came from or.
Well, let's move on to working with the king, because I know I know Dickon is dying to know about that. Let's get this picture out. This is a fantastic picture of you and the late great Elvis Presley. I mean, how was day one working with Elvis? What was he like?
He is just a terrific guy because, till this day, there's no one that ever looked like Elvis or sounded like Elvis, and it was very sad how his career went, because shortly I don't even remember when this movie was it 69 or something?
This was 64, and 64. he finished doing films in 68, so it was a few years before it was only a couple of years before he finished doing movies altogether.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was that he was, as you can see, healthy, fit, happy. Yeah. And then it was just went down the tube, as we know that the Colonel, he was a very evil man. And I met him for a few minutes and I just didn't like his vibe at all.
How close was Tom Hanks's portrayal of him to the real guy?
Well, I must say I've seen the movie now, the new Elvis movie 2 or 3 times, and because Austin Butler did just a phenomenal.
I came out of that movie so depressed because A, I've never played Elvis, and B, if I ever do, I'll never do it as good as him.
Elvis. Elvis is a kind of a big guy. Okay, so Austin is actually a kind of a skinny, tall, skinny guy with brownish hair. They don't look a thing alike. But he was able to channel Elvis's energy and the movements. He said he had 2 years to do that because all the movies this year are, in my opinion, not good at all. There's really hardly any good movies because
it wasn't. 2022 was not a great year for films.
No, they were all kind of shot in bits and pieces because of the lockdown situation. As you know, in film, even a film with 2 people in it, there's all these other people around you. So even in an intimate scene, you're not intimate. There's like so many people there, So Elvis was really an amazing human being, I would say, other than, I think I wrote in my book, if you want to know, Dickon. That my first encounter with him was, I went to the set. I thought to meet my, the director or the producer or whatever co-stars were there. And I didn't have to work that day. Or they said, well, maybe we'll get to you, later. And so I went down to my trailer, and I thought that I would just lie down for a while. Well, the air conditioning wasn't working at all. So they were on a lunch break, and I didn't know who to find to fix this. So I thought, well, maybe I can find a shady spot or somewhere to just lay down. So I went to this, so I was walking down this trail, and it was a very, it was kind of full of pebbles. And so I was looking down. I wasn't looking up. I was just walking. And all of a sudden I heard this voice and go, hold it. Okay, you can't come this way. And I looked up and there was a hand, 10 inches from my chest. And I said, I said, oh, I'm so sorry. My trailer air conditioning wasn't working. So I was looking for a cool place to lie down. He said, well, I have to check with Elvis. And I said, oh my God. So he he came right back and he said, fine, young lady, come this way. And I went up there. It was a Queens whatever they call it, the Queen's House. I believe that the whole place was built by the Mormons because there was a huge Mormon temple next to a Polynesian Culture Center. That's where we shot it. And they replicated all the villages of Polynesia. And so he led me to a side room where there's a massage table set up there. And he threw me some towel or something. So I was like just so relieved to be in this nice cool room and everything. And I kind of like drifted off. And when I opened my eyes, well, Elvis's face was like 12 inches from my head. I was like, oh my God. I didn't know what to say. He was putting a cold compress on my head. And the first thing I can think of is that he smells like talcum powder and milk. Yeah, I mean, usually guys will have some kind of aftershave or whatever it is, talcum powder and milk. And then I'm looking at his face and that voice of his, he said, I hope you're feeling better. I can get you anything or something to eat or something to drink or whatever. And then he started getting up, walking out, and he said, no fried chicken though. We're a ways from the South, So, so right away it was comfortable and easy, And then, after a very short time, I gathered myself, and one of his guys came in and said, the air conditioning is working now in your trailer. I said, oh, great. So I jumped up and walked into the next room, the main room, and there was the colonel there.
Right.
And he got evil vibes from him immediately because all the what you want to call it? They call them the Memphis Mafia.
Memphis Mafia, yeah.
Yeah, the Memphis Mafia. They're all close to him, and they were just, like doing all these, circus tricks to entertain the colonel. He was undoubtedly, holding court there. So I couldn't wait to get out of there. And I just say, thank you so much, Mr. Presley, and I waved him goodbye. And then we met up many times when we're not working. I would go into his trailer and he, at that time, he was very much into martial arts. He was truly, devoted to martial arts. And I briefly know Bruce Lee. That was even before he got to be, an international figure. So, yeah. So we talked about that, and also we talked about faith. He was he was a Southern Baptist, and that my family had been very, very strong Christians. And that my grandmother has started like 2 Mandarin-speaking churches in the East Coast of America. And so we talked about faith, and we talked about, martial arts. And maybe like 3 or 4 times, I was just talking to him,
And this was off camera. This wasn't when you were working. This was kind of like, okay, we can actually just hang out.
So I'm so saddened that this whole series of events had come. Yeah.
His life was quite tragic.
Tragic.
Someone just asked about TCB. So TCB means taking care of business, and if you were in the Memphis Mafia, he would give a necklace out with TCB on it if you were a man, which means taking care of business. And if you were going out with one of his best friends, you'd be given a TLC one, which means tender love and care. So,
yeah. So
in
Melissa Stanton asked if you got one of those rings.
Oh no, I didn't. I didn't go out with him, and I'm sure that some other co-stars did. But you have to remember that I started in the business so young. I was totally underage, so
Yeah.
I never had that so-called sexual harassment kind of thing. You know, maybe just once. You know, and
I mean, that's good. That's good to hear that. But you back in the day, you did hear a lot of horror stories. I'm kind of surprised. Maybe you were protected somehow by.
I was protected by my
you.
agent, and also because of my age, because you really, you know, if you're under 21, you know, and I had done a majority of my films before I was 21 even, you know, so, and by 24, I was married, and I, you know, people are not really going to come on to anybody who's a married woman, you know?
No.
At least.
Well, you'd hope not. I mean, Dick and May have some other Elvis questions, but we can't not mention Frank Sinatra. I wasn't aware that you'd had a thing with Frank until quite recently. Actually, I was quite surprised to read that.
Wow, yeah, it was quite a well, you know,
a whirlwind.
Well, no, we were together every day for over 2 years. You know,
but it happened quite quickly though. He sort of didn't he contact you and say, "Hey, I want to take you out." It was pretty forward.
It didn't really happen like that. I was at the same time when I was doing these movies like the Green Berets or something, maybe not Paradise Hawaiian Style. I really got the, you know, dates mixed up, but I know definitely, you know, during the days of the Green Berets, because I was doing a commercial for Standard Oil of America. You know, you know, they used to do gasoline commercials.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, and they do cigarette commercials. So so when my agent called me, manager called me and said, you know, you're in Florida, and your producer is in Florida. He's such a nice guy. You should call and have lunch with him. And I was doing a commercial there. You know, the commercial has so much money, and we would go to Hawaii and the Bahamas, wherever the people in Madison Avenue want to go. The advertising execs, you know, they're very powerful people, especially in a company like BVD&O, you know. So I went to have lunch with my, you know, the producer that produced the Doris Day movie, Caprice.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. So Aaron Rosenberg, he's a nice guy, nice guy. He adopted 2 girls from Tahiti, in fact, you know. So so I said, well, you know, he invited me to the Fontainebleau, which is the biggest place in Miami, and I got there, and I thought it was going to be me and, you know, Rosenberg. Little did I know that only seat that was empty, there were like 6 or 8 people on that table there. I was just really, you know, I didn't know. So the only chair that was left empty was right directly in front of Sinatra. So I cannot help but to have to look at him once in a while. I didn't want to be.
What's a girl gonna do? You know?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I didn't want to be staring at him. You know, so I basically kept my eyes on my food and ate. You know, so I ate, and once in a while I look up. And it's not so much the way he looked or anything, and I mean, of course, he was very attractive. I mean, you know, he's like same age as my mom. He's like 30-something years older than me, and I wasn't familiar with his music. Let's put it that way. It was of another era, you know. So then I looked up and I go, oh wow, you know. So very, and I remember one thing is that some lady came up to him and asked him for his autograph and pat him on the back, and he swung around and almost knocked this lady down to the floor. I thought, wow, this is very, very, very mean. You know, it's not nice. I mean, if he refused to give her an autograph, he could just say, no, not now. I'm having my lunch or something. You know, so that was it. And I thought, well, this is an interesting, story to tell my girlfriend. So guess what? I had lunch with Frank Sinatra. So, so then he said, so then a few weeks passed back in LA, went to a private club and with a friend of mine, and it's packed in there. So we had a terrible table by the door, and I see that there's a line going to the ladies' room. It was just unending. So pretty soon I had to go to the ladies' room, So if you have to go to the ladies' room, you have to go to the ladies' room. So I walked back there. And when I came out, I realized why there's such a big line there. There's Sinatra in the corner booth there with maybe 4 or 5, 3 or 4 of his friends. And so happened that one of the guys I had worked with, Harry Gardino, I think he had a series or something, Harry Gardino, another Italian, he likes to hang out with the Italians. And so he said, come on, Irene, come on, come, chat with us. So I squeezed into that booth. And so this was the second time now I met Frank Sinatra, and I'm going, okay, I got some more stories to tell. Guess what? I, even had a drink with Frank Sinatra, so I went to, I left and whatever, and then never thought about it. The very next day, a very famous restaurateur, he used to be an actor. He turned a restaurateur, and he is, of course, Italian, they're very tight with the Italians, the Goombas, and he called me up and he says that, Frank has got a special table reserved for you, and tonight at 7:30 he's going to pick you up at 7 o'clock. Be punctual, because he's a very punctual guy. I said, who are you talking about? What? I was totally didn't know what to say. So, and it turned out that it was Sinatra. So I said, but he knows me because of that commercial. I was on TV like 40 times a day. It was the Chevron commercial that they played the jingle, the song, the minute you hear that song, that commercial is coming on.
Yeah.
And so it was just on TV all the time. So he must have seen me. So I said, oh my God. Then, I went through, as most women do, trying to find the right clothes to wear. And, I was, it's a dinner date. I should really have a dress on. And, I don't know, what should I wear? So went through everything I had, went out shopping for a couple hours and came back and, still. So I ended up with a little black dress, maybe I should belt it or maybe I shouldn't belt it. I don't know, so. So then the phone rang at like 6:45, and he says, baby, I maybe you have heard that the news of my divorce from Mia has hit the papers. I can't go home because the paparazzis are all over in front of my house, and he had a house on Mulholland Drive.
Right.
You may know, Lance,
Yeah.
and so it wasn't like a mega mansion or anything like that, so he says, I would like for you to come down to the desert, and I really couldn't understand even what he was trying to say. All I could understand was that I didn't have to have dinner with him. I mean, I'm like so relieved. I just kicked off my shoes, ripped my dress off and just fell down in bed, kicked my shoes off. It's like, oh my God, I'm so relieved. Now I can order a pizza and just, whatever,
Not many people would say that about Sinatra.
so I that was it. And then I realized, he said, I said, did he asked me to come to the desert? How am I going to get to the desert? And should I go? Of course, I called my manager, who's like a father figure to me. I said, I don't know. What should I do? Should I go or should I not go? And he would say really very wise things like, he's just another man. Okay. If you like him, go. You'll have a good time. If you don't like him, you can leave. I'll buy you a plane ticket and I'll be picking you up at the airport. So he would just make me feel so much better, And of course, once that is set up, then I am contacted by his transportation, the guy that's in charge of his transportation, because he's got his own plane, and I didn't know if I ever flown in a private plane then, so and his name was Sarge, I think, kind of like a Arnold Palmer type of guy, and
right,
he would be in charge of transportation. He would every weekend he would have, he bring, film used to come in cans, before they were digital,
sure.
Cans of film for his private screening of the weekend, and he would have all these different guests over, and which I met a lot of interesting people just by being one of the, guests for dinner, and
so that was that ended up being a 2-year thing. That was the beginning of a 2-year.
Yeah, we were never apart for over 2 years, and I went with him. If he needs to go to New York, he's got a apartment at the Waldorf, and and then he didn't see other people, but I think once in a while he has this very old friends like the fake Prince Romanov. I don't know if there's a restaurant in Beverly Hills called the Romanovs, and he's supposed to be this Russian Prince Romanov,
right.
And his very energetic wife, and so so we did double date then. So if you were going out with Sinatra, you're obviously not going to be going out with anybody else,
Right.
Did we ever discuss, marriage or anything? No, man. He's like same age as my mom. They were born one day apart.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, his birthday is December 12th, and my mom's December 13th. So it was like, and I must say though, I did hear his music for the first time. I never heard his music, you know what I'm saying? So I had a ringside table. He knows where I am, wherever they told me to sit down.
What was he like about your career? Because you still had your thing going on, and you don't want to just slip under somebody's spotlight, do you? And
no, I was interested in pursuing my career. I was young, and I have life to live. I have I like to pursue my spiritual path. I like to work. He said, yeah, you broads, all you want to do is to work, like Julia Prowse, and then there's Mia. She went on to do that Rosemary's Baby, and it was a big hit, and he was not happy about it. He said, well, I'll do a movie with you. I got this thing optioned, and you have a part in there. I said, oh, thank you so much. It never happened, but that's the kind of thing he would do. And then he would say, I said, I'm sorry, but I have to go into town. I have an interview at Paramount. He said, that's all right. I'll drive you, because I could go into town too. I need to have a meeting with Mickey. Mickey Rudin was his lawyer. And and then he drove me through the lot, and the gay guy, I said, I need to go to such and such. Well, he looked that there was Sinatra, and of course they started chatting. Everybody who sees Sinatra will always bring up the fact that, oh, don't you know so and so? My mom used to live, just like 2 miles from where your mom lived, and da da da. This whole Italian thing would happen, and he was a nice guy, interesting. Okay. He said that a lot of these young people just doesn't know how to handle success.
Right.
Failure is hard to handle, as everybody knows, but success is even harder to handle.
Right.
So
It's
he
not-
wasn't really,
wrong.
he's not a big drinker, like before he opens in Vegas, he would say, they go on the wagon, or is it off the wagon? I don't know. One of those things. On the wagon?
No, on the wagon. Yeah, he'll be on the wagon.
On the wagon for like 5 days. He will have his rehearsal guy, who Jimmy Van Heusen or something like that, come down and rehearse a little bit. He has a natural voice and a natural singer. He doesn't rehearse very much, because sometimes I thought I can, maybe listen in on his rehearsal.
I wanted to show the actor that you mentioned earlier, who was Harry Guardino.
Oh yes, that's Harry Guardino. Oh my gosh!
Because as soon as you said the name, I thought, I know that name. I've got to see who that is. And of course, this is the guy who played, Harry's boss in Clint Eastwood's various movies and Magnum Force and that kind of thing. And this guy often played cops. He's one of the Italian actors that mainly played cops as opposed to gangsters. He did do a couple of gangster roles, but he passed away in 97, I think. But he was a fantastic actor, great character actor.
That's right. So that was the guy that was sitting, because of course he's Italian. So so he was at the booth and say, somehow we met each other or worked together, and that's how it happened, and it went on and on and on. And I remember the night that at the Waldorf Astoria, he said, we're having I think at the time, whoever the mayor is, John Lindsay or something like that, for drinks or for dinner. Please get some flowers ready, okay? So like an idiot, I didn't know that I could just call downstairs and say, send some flower arrangements up, 2 flowers, one for the dining table and one for whatever, the living area. No, instead I had the driver drive me all over Midtown to buy flowers and try to make my own bouquet, and made a big mess out of the kitchen, but he would just, instead of getting mad at me, he would just laugh about it. He said, you have to do that, because I was like a child next to him, and so it was like, well, okay, that looks fine. I said, are you sure? I mean, I could add, a couple more. This, it's just such a mess. I mean, that's the kind of things that I do, because I was young,
He must have found that cute, though. He must have found that very endearing.
Yeah, and there was one night that we were in the Waldorf, and he said, baby, I'm gonna stay up a little bit. You go to sleep, okay? And it was the night that when Judy Holliday died.
Oh,
yeah, she. In fact, there's a film I think a couple of years ago. It's called United States versus Billie Holiday.
I saw that. I saw that movie.
Billie Holiday. She was a major junkie, but she was also a phenomenal
talent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't not ask you a David Niven question.
Okay.
Because that, of course, is the film that first introduced me to you, which is Paper Tiger, that still gets played on BBC occasionally. and that was predominantly filmed in Malaysia, if I remember rightly, and kind of set in a slightly fictitious country with terrorism going on, reflecting what was actually going on in the country at the time. So there was some parallels. It was quite a cute, smaltzy story in that. I mean, what do you remember of your time working on that film, and David in particular? Because I mean, he was a huge, iconic figure in the UK, and like I said,
I had a ball there. I must say, I really, I when I was cast that part, I was married at the time, and I had a husband. Unfortunately, he passed, and he was 900% supportive of me. And you can't fail if you have somebody, 900% supportive of you. And he's a very famous photographer, and he would do some photo shoots of me and placed it in different, newspapers. And I just, I don't know. Somehow I was cast in that, and then they did the production. It was a co-production, I think, between UK and Germany, Bavarian Studios.
Right.
Bavarian Studios, and so then the British wardrobe people wants me to go to this place, have special boots made for me, and whatever, and I didn't even know that there was such a thing, and here I live right in the middle of Los Angeles. So they did have 3 pairs of the most gorgeous boots made for me. But then they had to just stomp on it and scrape it up and whatever.
Yeah, they had to dirty it down. They had to break it down. Yeah,
break it down. Yeah, make it look like that you've been chomping through the jungles and stuff like that, instead of these $500 a pair, shoes. So I was thinking, oh my God, that's so sad. I really like to keep them after the show. Oh, you're welcome to it. That's what they're going to look like now. So, I have fond memories of Paper Tiger. We were there a long location again, like 3.5 months.
Yeah.
And when you are on location, say like outside of the United States, maybe that was my second time or third time or something, but there's a lot of expats, Americans live abroad, and I don't know if they're truly happy of their choices. I know that they stay drunk a lot,
Right.
Really. So Niven, I have, interestingly, we had the stunt coordinator who's very famous from UK. He had done like 3 or 4 Bond movies.
Okay? I know the guy you're talking about.
Bob
I'll get his
something.
name.
Bob.
Yeah, I'll get his name in a sec.
Yeah.
But I know the guy you mean.
Bob something or other. And so half the cast was staying they had their families with them, Hardy Kruger has his wife and kid with him, and Niven and the
Toshiro
Mifune had his
Seven Samurai.
interpreter, and his girlfriend with him. So they were at the Hilton Hotel, and the rest of us were at the Holiday Inn, which is just, you can walk through, like 2 blocks, and you're there. So Niven was definitely an interesting character, and I just admire him so much of all the things that he has done. But the important thing he taught me was that he said, and he lives in the south of France, so so he said, "Oh, don't be afraid. You can have another glass of wine." I said, I I really only drink like one glass of wine or something. So he said, just remember, you can drink as much wine as you want to. Just before you go to sleep, you just drink as much water as you can. So even if you have to get up and pee all night, you'll never wake up with a hangover. Yes, sir. Okay, I'll remember that. I'll remember that one. And Mifune, of course, he was powerful. Just like he was a samurai, because he wanted one shot. He told the director that he wanted the scene to open on his back, then he'll turn into it. His back was so powerful that, and he's not a huge guy or anything. He's just, I guess he's pretty buff, for a Japanese man. Then he turns around and he's just got this incredible intensity, and he didn't speak much English, but he learned enough English to do all his lines, because he didn't want anybody to loop his lines. And so he had an interpreter with him and his girlfriend.
Because they famously dubbed the kid in the film, I think. The kid's voice was dubbed, who played...
I am not sure, because he had a tutor, Koichi.
Yeah.
Endo, I think his name was Endo.
That's right. Yeah, and that they were going to launch a big career for him, and that was the only movie he ever made.
Really?
It was.
Wow.
I tried to track him down for an interview. Actually, I've tried to get hold of him, and it's impossible to find him.
Really? Wow.
That's the only acting credit he's got on IMDb. Never done anything.
Oh, wow! And he had a huge part, and he was so good in it.
He was very good.
Yeah, he did have a tutor on set with him, and that was coaching him. I mean, or at least his lines, because he spoke very good English. I mean, the way that it sounded was good.
Well, look, we've already gone a bit over time, and we always give our last question to an up and coming younger actor or actress. And I've got a guest here, Melanie, now, who'd like to ask you something. Who's from the States. Didn't even get to talk about Jeff Bridges or the Asian American Theatre.
Out in Beverly Hills.
We could have you back on again, because I've got like 5 other questions that I didn't even get onto, and I don't want to cut Melanie out of her question. I don't want to keep you on longer than we agreed. Mel, what's your question for Irene as an aspiring actress of a younger age?
Yeah.
Shall we say?
Yes. So your success in the industry spans 5 decades and 32 feature films. So what advice do you have for aspiring actors to achieve longevity in their careers?
Oh,
longevity. I mean, I know, because I think that you're probably in your 20s. Yeah. So are you studying with a theater group or a film group or okay? As your parents supportive of you?
Yes, I'm currently studying. I'm minoring in like television and film at my college, and I'm also taking acting classes outside of that. Unfortunately, my parents aren't really that understanding, but hopefully in the future it'll get better.
Yeah,
Irene can relate to your dilemma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's wonderful, because you know what? Timing is very good for you now, because I don't know what ethnicity you are, but you can cross over into playing very different parts, because as I don't know about in the UK, but in the States, certainly they cast diversified. I mean, completely. So a part can go to Anglo white, American, or it can go to an African American. It could go to an Asian. It could go to, East Asian, which is what they consider Indian. India, Malaysian, whatever. Indonesian. North Asia could include Japan and everything. So because the film is a visual, media, and so you can cross over. I feel that that's very it's very fortunate of you that you can cross over into playing so many different parts,
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
No, no, you go.
So, I feel that this is a good timing for you. Absolutely a good timing for you. Maybe back 10 years or 20 years would be definitely not possible, but uh, it's just a great timing for you to be, actor, writer, producer, and,
Definitely. Thank you so
I,
much.
I think I would add that the more proactive you can be about your own career now, because there's so many mediums open to you that when Irene was your age, she couldn't access digital media or just go and make a quick little movie on her phone. She'd have to run around with a 16mm camera to do that on her shoulder. You've got so much more at your fingertips now. Don't be afraid to use it and be proactive with those tools.
yeah.
Constantly generate your own work when and wherever you can. That would be I think Dickon would agree with me on that. And we're always doing that at the Outcasts ourselves. Well, look, Irene, thank you so much for coming in. Melanie, thank you for coming in and asking a quick guest question there. Honestly, Irene, we could have had you on for another hour.
I just wanted to tell you that I wrote a screenplay and it's going to become a movie very soon.
What is that?
Yeah, it's called Baba's Bangkok Buffet. We are getting financing in about 2 weeks' time. It's going to shoot as SAG low. And it's a very, very interesting, funny story. It's an LA story. It's about a Chinese diner, a 40-year-old diner that serves magical food. And we got, Hispanics in there, white Americans. We got African Americans in it. It was just, it's a comedy, action, fantasy. It's a fantasy kind of movie.
That's a perfect antidote to the couple of years we've had thus far.
And also, just to remind people that Irene's book is available to buy on Amazon. The links for that will be below. If you want to get a hold of a copy, you can order it direct. Lots of 5-star reviews on there, so bound to be a cracking read. And Irene is still working and available for work. So anybody in the industry who wants to cast her in a meaty role, or Melanie in another role, please feel free to do that, because I know my indie film director friends always watch these later. So listen, it's been fantastic having you on. I hope we can have you on again, actually. And just listening to your stories of a bygone era, there's a lot we could have talked about. I really wanted to get your views on the changes in the industry, and maybe we could have you back to talk about that specific topic, because it's quite a big one, with maybe another guest actor or two, because there've been so many big changes in the industry in the last 5 years, some for the better, but yet we last year, I think, was a year for a lot of bad product. I have to say,
I totally agree.
A lot of bad movies and a lot of bad TV shows and a lot of poor writing. And we've got to ask why that is. That's a big discussion for another time, I think.
I think it's time for it to have an action, fantasy, comedy, drama.
Yeah. Well, and we'd love to know more about that film when it's happening. Listen, come back and talk to us about it. We can promote it for you. We'd be happy to do that. If you want to bring some of the other people working on it, maybe we do a group interview with you guys about the film. Whatever you want to do, just let us know. We'd be more than happy to host that for you. And it would be our absolute pleasure to do that.
Thank you so much for your time and your energy, Irene. It's amazing to see you.
So, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Outcast Creative channel. We're going to be back with more of these. Our Danny Webb interview is also up online from last week, so you can check that out. It's all down below. And we'll see you all again real soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
And
you.